استهداف الطواقم الطبية.
We have no money, we have no food, no electricity, no proper living.
Gaza is dying, and it's not an exaggeration. First things first, the humanitarian aid shipments. Reuters reports that before the October 7th attacks in Israel, some 465 trucks of humanitarian aid were needed per day in Gaza. We're seeing, at best, 20 trucks a day at the moment, says Brian Lander, deputy head of emergencies at the World Food Program. What's more, Israel refuses to allow them to be distributed in the north, where most of the hospitals are. Speaking of hospitals, according to WHO Regional Emergencies Director Rick Brennan, 1/3 of hospitals in Gaza are now non-functional. We are on our knees asking for that sustained, scaled-up, protected humanitarian operation. Human Rights Watch reports Israel is refusing to restore the flow of water and electricity and blocking fuel shipments, calling it a war crime. Real quick, content critical of Israel is possibly being demonetized and hidden. Find me, GDF, on Patreon, or patreon.com/GDFofficial. There's tons of spicy videos there. Also, I accept donations. Human Rights Watch notes that Gaza relies not only on aid through Egypt, but on the flow of electricity and drinking water from Israel, which has been completely cut off. In sealing Gaza off from objects necessary for the survival of Gaza's 2 million inhabitants, half of whom are children, Israel is punishing all of Gaza's civilians for Hamas's attacks. Israel, as the occupying power in Gaza, is required under the Geneva Conventions to ensure civilians have access to basic goods. Al Jazeera interviewed a UK-based nutritionist, Yusra Ashak. Palestinians in Gaza have already been malnourished for years, and for their bodies to now further endure food rationing, it will take a real toll. With a dramatic drop in calories, the body will start to break down fat and then later muscle mass. This is the danger zone when organs can start to fail. Of course, as has been reported for years now, Gaza has already been experiencing a water crisis. Back in 2021, Al Jazeera quoted a resident of Al-Shati refugee camp, Falastin Abdel Karim, who said water came 3 times a week and sometimes came mixed with sewage. The water reportedly kills plants. Indeed, the UN reported years ago that 97% of this water is unfit for human consumption. Al Jazeera reports now that Palestinians have become reliant on private wells and desalination plants, and the last remaining desalination plant ran out of fuel on October 24th. The Gaza Strip runs on fuel. It powers the enclave's hospitals, water pumps, and taxis. As UN Relief and Works Agency Chief Philip Lazzarini put it, without fuel, there will be no water, no functioning hospitals and bakeries. Without fuel, there will be no humanitarian assistance. Undeterred by the looming catastrophe, IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari reaffirmed Israel's position. Fuel will not enter Gaza as Hamas uses it for its operational needs. Hagari, thankfully, appears to have friends at the Washington Post. Palestinian militants use fuel to propel the rockets they manufacture and fire into Israel, as well as for vehicles the fighters drive during operations. In a plea for ceasefire, UNICEF writes, "The Gaza Strip has borne witness to a devastating toll on its children, with more than 400 children killed or injured daily." As for the water crisis, fuel is of paramount importance for the operation of essential facilities such as hospitals, desalination plants, and water pumping stations. Gaza's neonatal intensive care units house over 100 newborns. Some are in incubators, making an uninterrupted power supply a matter of life and death. The Guardian describes the harrowing conditions of the besieged hospitals. Hospital staff and aid organizations report nightmarish conditions, including doctors forced to operate with little or no anesthesia, or by the light of mobile phones, and using vinegar in some cases in place of antiseptic. People aren't just in the hospitals to be seen either. Many of them, tens of thousands of them, are seeking shelter from Israeli bombing. More than 20 hospitals in North and Central Gaza, which includes Gaza's largest, Al-Shifa, have been told to leave as part of Israel's evacuation order. Omar Abdelmanan, a senior pediatric neurology resident at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in London, told The Guardian that doctors are reusing surgical gloves and equipment as they are not able to sterilize properly due to the lack of water. Infectious diseases like chickenpox are starting to spread. It is only a matter of time before we see cholera and typhoid. Reports are abound regarding Israel turning water back on for Gaza's south. CNN reports Israel has since allowed some water to flow through, but the fuel required to pump and clean it is fast running out. Further, according to the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, this meager supply has declined by 20% since they turned it on. As the water system collapses, some Gazans have been forced to drink dirty, salty water, sparking concerns of a health crisis and fears that people could start dying from dehydration. One vital supply missing from the aid convoys has been fuel. Starting to notice a pattern? Without it, Gaza's water system has crumbled. Fuel is water, says Natasha Hall of the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Cutting off fuel is cutting off water. Oxfam joins the chorus of rights groups warning of waterborne disease, reporting that all 5 of Gaza's water treatment plants are closed. Additionally, most sewage pumping stations are also no longer operating. Untreated sewage is now being discharged into the sea, and in some areas, solid waste is accumulating in the streets. Clean water has now virtually run out. Compared to the 50 to 100 liters of water per person per day recommended by the World Health Organization, Gazans are down to 3. It risks becoming a breeding ground for cholera and other diseases. Aside from the humanitarian catastrophe from the blockade, the Israeli military has also accelerated its bombing campaign. From October 23rd to 24th, the Gaza Health Ministry reported over 700 fatalities. As I'm writing these words now, the death toll in Gaza has reportedly surpassed 6,000. The situation isn't helped by Israel's evacuation order, in which 1 million were told to flee North Gaza or be killed.
Those who want to save their life, please go south.
As a leaflet dropped on Gazan residents put it, your presence north of Wadi Gaza puts your life in danger. Whoever chooses not to leave North Gaza to the south of Wadi Gaza might be identified as an accomplice in a terrorist organization.
We got a lot of warning calls and a lot of leaflets like these. They basically say that being in Gaza or remaining in Gaza City puts our lives in danger.
Further confirmation that Israel is implementing Vietnam War-style free fire zones. See my last video. However, despite ordering Gazans to flee south to, in the words of Israel's defense minister, separate them from terrorists,
We need to separate them.
Israel is still bombing the south while denying them a humanitarian corridor through Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of refugees are being crammed into the southern half of the Strip and still being bombed. 1.4 million are reportedly internally displaced, with 600,000 in just 150 UN Relief Works Agency shelters. They report that at their Rafah logistics base, 400 people are sharing one toilet.